You deserved everything you got. This is a union city.
That is a Philadelphia tradition.
Seize the means of podcasting.
Oh, God, the boss has crushed us.
Let me tell you one thing else.
In oldie-timey times,
The pleasure of the flesh is in solidarity.
we will not raw dog reality for that one.
It's going to be wholly unprofessional.
The Scab Buster.
What have we become?
Keep together strong. Let that be your mantra.
Hello and welcome to the Labor John podcast, where we left a good job in the city of Philadelphia and the surrounding world. My name is Young Sam James, and I've been working for the man every night and day. And that man just so happens to be my co-host.
I am not an employer. I have not hired this man. I've never spoken to this man before, but my name is Gabe Christie.
You are the man.
I'm a man.
You could be the man.
I don't know if I like that.
It doesn't matter what you like or what you don't like, Gabe. It's happening. No matter what you say, it's happening.
All right. Well, then I am the
wheels
man.
are in motion.
That's fair enough.
And you are a boss. You're corporate, Gabe.
I am.
You are HR.
I exploit the workers.
You do. Yeah, you do. You exploit me.
Mm-hmm.
With your little saucy words and everything.
I think I exploit myself most of all, though. If I'm being honest.
That's sad to hear, man. You all right? Do we need to go off mic for a little bit and talk?
The fun part of having multiple personalities is that they steal each other's surplus value.
Oh,
So
I like it. I like it though.
I think that
what chapter is bipolarism and what's the one with multiple personalities thing?
that this is all part of Capital Volume 4. Memes are praxis.
Oh yes, of course.
So one of the lesser known volumes of Capital.
Oh yes,
but
the one on
very
schizophrenia.
important one.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, of course. All right, and today, Jesus Christ, today we are going to learn about
The 1972 teachers' strike in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay, teachers.
Yes.
All right, yes, yeah. I'll preface this by saying the laziest workers of all the workers in the workforce are the
Very
teachers,
much
of
so.
course. I mean, who else gets like a 3-month vacation? I mean, honest
Yep.
to God, seriously. I mean, come on, can we talk about the teachers for a minute?
Yeah. And no, it's absurd. They don't do any work. And for some reason they went on strike. So I should also
Imagine
say I am the son of a teacher and the son-in-law of a Philadelphia public school district teacher. They do work a lot before anyone yells at us.
Yes, we want to preface the preface, or maybe postface the preface of the postface and the preface of saying, yes, this is just the silky smooth sarcasm of Labor Jawed. Yes, teachers, holy shit, get the shit end of the stick about 110% of the time. God damn.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we should start by I guess going into a very, very truncated history of the Philadelphia school district.
Oh no.
Because one of the things I found out is that they have gotten the shit end of the stick for like well over 200 years.
I could have told you that, and I don't know anything, Gabe.
So the Philly School District was established in 1818 to teach the youth of Philadelphia.
Aww.
Basically, or it started out, from my understanding of it, it wasn't terribly clear. So it seems that it started out basically as like what we today would call charter schools.
Oh, okay.
So the state was paying for people or the city was paying for people to go to privately owned schools.
Oh, okay.
But then in 1836, they expanded that to actually provide publicly funded schooling for students in Philly.
That was a mistake.
It was.
Charter schools. There you go. That's
how you do it.
Yep.
There was one school that was, I can't remember I think it was Girard College, was founded specifically for the poor white youth of Philadelphia.
Oh,
And they
good.
listed that out in their charter. That was great. There was also, I think this was in the 1890s. There was, all right, I apologize. I need to pause. Okay, so
Yeah, we're recording again.
yes, now we're recording again.
You missed my Tibetan throat singing. I hate being the one who has to edit these.
I wanted to give a brief shout out to the Peter A.B. Widener Residential School for Physics. Oh, dang it! All right, never mind. Forget all of that.
What, Gabe? What is happening?
There was a school that was specifically like the Industrial Institute for Maimed Children.
What?
It was one of the privately funded schools in Philly, and it was like for children that were injured in industrial accidents.
Oh my god!
But it was a whole school. It's now on the campus of Girls High, but the original school that was there was like this school for children injured in industrial accidents. And it was to give them, it was basically job training so they could go back to work in other industries.
Christ.
I can't remember the exact name for it because it was atrocious. But that was the state of schooling in Philadelphia for a lot of the 19th century. It's like, Jimmy lost his leg in the factory, so now he has to go to school.
Oh, where did you go to school? Oh, the Institute of Severed Limbs.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. What a, early 20th century, late 19th century name for a school, though, seriously.
Yeah. I need to, if I can find the actual name for that school, we will put that in an appendix. So initially,
well, you'd be going to that school if you lost that appendix too.
It's true. In an industrial accident. So the school system was originally actually surprisingly democratically governed. So you had a board of controllers, which were appointed by district judges, but they only managed the finances. The actual decisions of what was being taught day to day in the classroom was being decided on by locally elected board members.
Okay.
So
did they have any involvement in teaching? Were they teachers at all? Or
oh god, no.
Great.
And because it's Philly, it also got super corrupt immediately.
Yay! Anything that happens in Philadelphia, within 5 minutes, it gets corrupted.
Yeah, really quickly. So in 1905, they reorganized it into what the modern school board system that we have today is.
I'm glad they haven't changed anything in 120 odd years or so.
Well, they did change it briefly when our school district was being managed by Harrisburg, and then they gave it back to us.
It's no, you can't have this. All right, here you go. You can have this back until you're good.
Yeah, that was actually pretty recent that we got control of our own school district back.
Wow.
Which, yeah, it's great. So you have a school superintendent and then 9 members of the board of educators, who were appointed by the mayor. And so this basically turned them all into or basically it turned the school board into political appointments, but it was still less corrupt than the previous system.
All
so it wasn't openly taking bribes. Now schools surprisingly do need to be paid for. Which has been
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it's been a long running issue. And also why Harrisburg took over the Philly school district for a while. So schools were barred from levying or the school district was barred from levying taxes. So instead, it had to request funding from the city, and it could also take out loans.
Okay.
And this had the effect of basically the school district was always running on a shoestring budget from like day one.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were constantly just cutting corners everywhere they could. And this, so for most of Philly school district's history, they had very few teachers, or they had like fairly large class sizes, as few teachers as humanly possible, and had a very simplified curriculum.
This was yesterday, Gabe.
Yeah. So nothing changed.
Yeah. Okay.
But now we're going to talk about the people actually doing the teaching in the classrooms, who we call teachers.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you, Gabe. Thank you for holding my hand through this episode. I appreciate it.
There are some difficult concepts. There will be a pop quiz afterwards. So we're going to talk a little bit about the local number 192 of the American Federation of Teachers.
Okay.
Which was the AFT, which was the first union representing teachers in Philadelphia. So the AFT is the American Federation of Teachers. In Philly, it was the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers. So the PUFT. The local 192 was a voluntary local, which meant that they were never trying to like actually win a bargaining committee. And they acted more as an agitation/advocacy group than like real, or what we would consider a union today.
Okay.
They were made up of political activists, civil rights activists, labor organizers, and communists.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love
it. kind of like a lot of communists.
Yeah.
So many that in 1941, the American Federation of Teachers removed the charter of 3 of their locals, which were in Philadelphia, Chicago, and New York.
Oh, God.
Because they had too many communists.
Too many communists, yeah.
So Local 192 was disbanded in 1941 and replaced by Local Number 3. Oh, also, I'm definitely doing an episode on Local 192.
Okay.
Because I want to research more of them.
Right.
The one person that I have found out about them was a little old lady who was one of their organizers, and she went on the record as saying she always put her picket signs on a 2x4 because when the fascists came out, you could bring it down on their heads.
Oh, all right.
So,
all right, Grandma, yeah, there we go.
I like that lady.
Man, I got it.
Okay, so Local 3 got affiliated, or was formed basically like a couple months later. In 1941 to replace Local 192, and served as a regular, or as like an actual collective bargaining unit. So they did start negotiating for contracts, and that did actually improve wages and conditions in schools, and like, stuff did get better. So there was, however, a law in the books in Pennsylvania that public employees could not engage in labor actions. So you could have a collective bargaining unit and negotiate a contract, but you couldn't go on strike.
Okay.
Which meant,
yeah,
none of your contracts are going to be that good.
Yeah.
And it's also worth noting that this was relatively unique to Pennsylvania, that there were a lot of other AFT locals that had gone on strike successfully. It's also weird because AFSCME had engaged in strikes with public employees, and got away with it, but the AFT didn't want to, or the AFT didn't feel like they legally could for some reason. Yeah. So anyway, all of that changed on July 23rd, 1970, when the Public Employee Relations Act, also known as Act 195, passed and went into effect 90 days later. That expanded the definition of public employee unions and permitted the use of strikes in very limited circumstances.
Okay.
So you couldn't do like sympathy strikes or anything like that, but you could go on strike in response to unfair labor practices and contract negotiations.
Okay, good.
So the teachers first went on strike pretty much immediately after that law passed in 1970. And after that, they secured a 2-year contract, which was then coming up for negotiation in 1972.
Okay.
So the pressure was on to get a resolution together. And agitation started from both sides in the summer of 72. So the PFT, do we have a name for them yet?
I don't know. Hit your mic again, Gabe. Maybe we'll figure one out.
Do we have a name for them yet?
I don't know. We were just going to call them the Poof.
The Poofed?
The Poof.
So they laid out 500
The who?
demands.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Who? Who laid out?
The Poofed. Laid out 500 demands.
What?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I couldn't find a list of all 500, but I found multiple sources saying they had 500 demands. But the key ones were salary increases of about 30% for all positions, and a $12,000 starting wage.
Okay.
For all teachers.
$12,000.
Then a reassessment of the patrol duties, that's like teachers patrolling the hallway or
Jesus Christ,
watching or standing guard in the lunchroom and stuff like that.
Can we stop for a minute and just talk about, like, teaching is like the least amount of things that you fucking do in that position. You're a goddamn security guard. Stopping fights. It's amazing.
Yeah, we had I think it was the vice principal at my middle school, had his arm broken because he was breaking up a fight between two kids.
Yeah. So shout out to our teachers. I don't know, thoughts and prayers. There's literally nothing else we can do right now. Sorry.
If you meet a teacher, buy them a drink.
Yeah, we'll buy you a drink next time we're at the bar, and if you tell us you're a teacher, we'll buy you a drink. Okay.
Yeah. One of the articles I was reading explained it as every teacher strike comes down to window shades, which was a very roundabout and like it was a very journalistic article. But he basically, the argument was like the teachers generally the teachers never actually got rated or like judged by their ability to teach. They were always being judged by all of these other things that they had to do. Yeah. Like straightening window shades and cleaning up after their students and all of these other things. And so every single teacher strike has basically always been is very rarely actually about the teaching itself.
Yeah.
Because there's so much other stuff that they're required to do because the school district doesn't want to pay to have the extra staff to do all of that.
Yeah.
And that comes up a lot in this strike.
Oh, all right, Gabe. Give it
So they wanted, like we were saying, additional staffing for clerical positions and more teacher support so that you didn't have teachers like manning positions in the school office, which was happening, or doing all of these other, like they needed teaching aides, basically.
If there was one union that the mafia definitely should have taken a part of, it was the American Federation of Teachers. I don't know if they did or not, but things would definitely have changed in the classrooms if you saw Tony and Vinny in there.
I agree.
I'm just saying.
I agree. So they also wanted a maximum class size of 25 students.
All right. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Which that one really hit home because we're still at like well over 30 students, if
definitely.
not closer to 40.
Yeah.
Regularly. And then they wanted a 15-minute reduction in the elementary school workday and 5 hours of paid prep time every week. So they wanted to be able to come in basically for an hour every day, or have an hour of prep time every day, where they had no other duties.
Oh, okay. No, that's not going to happen.
No.
Sorry.
So the school district responded to those demands with unspecified, modest salary.
Air quotation marks.
Yeah, air quotes, modest salary increases for teachers with 11 years seniority and no other salary increases and no minimum.
Are there any fucking teachers who have been teaching for 11 years these days? Constantly, I've been hearing stories of people teaching 1 year and they instantly leave. You know?
Yep.
Jesus
no, I
Christ.
know. I've known a lot of teachers who have been teaching for like 3 or 4 years and have just gotten burnt out in the past year or two.
I mean, Jesus God.
Between COVID and budget cuts,
that's crazy, man.
It's awful.
You hear all this shit in the media about like retail workers. I worked retail for 7 years and like you get burnt out. Retail. It's like I worked for 7 years. People work for 10, 15 and teachers are only going for 3 years or something. They went to school for multiple years, paid tens of thousands of dollars for, and they just leave.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then you wonder, like, why are public schools failing?
Well, we know why public schools are failing. We'll talk about it in the end of the episode.
Yeah.
We don't have time right now to talk about the strategic, the reasons why public schooling is failing purposely.
Yeah. So then, so the school district also said they offered a maximum of 35 students per class.
Okay.
And that was also based on attendance. Right. So it seems to have been that rather than basing it on who was enrolled on at each individual school, they wanted it to be variable based on attendance. So like if prior to winter break, 5 kids consistently weren't showing up to this one classroom, then they could pull 5 kids in from another classroom and fill that.
Okay.
And yeah, it was very convoluted and seemed really weird.
Okay.
So then they also wanted to eliminate 200 non-teaching jobs and require teachers to spend 2 periods per week performing non-teaching duties.
No, we're moving away from this. Jesus Christ. So you're going to be making the sloppy joes in the cafeteria this week, Mrs. Jones?
Yeah, basically. And then they wanted to increase the workday for senior high teachers by 40 minutes.
What?
And 10 minutes for junior high teachers.
Why? Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Well, first of all, can I blame the teachers for a second? Don't start off with 500 demands. Rule number 1. Top 10. Do top 10, okay?
I would be interested to see what that list was.
Yeah.
Because I'm also wondering if it was like there were specific demands in every different school.
I guess so.
You don't need to like specifically negotiate over like there's a broken toilet stall on the second floor of Cecil B. Moore High School, and I want that fixed in this contract.
That's 497.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a business tactic where you start at 500, you start going backwards, you know?
Yeah.
But you don't start at fucking 3 digits, okay?
I mean, I don't know. We don't have the list. They could have all been very important. So Poofed, it's just Poofed leadership. Poofed leadership had initially planned to launch a like massive ad campaign because they wanted to hire the media agency Gray and Rogers to do PR for them. But if they wanted to do that, they had to raise the dues payment of every member by about $10.
Okay.
Which would require a vote by membership.
Yeah.
In late May, they put that decision to a vote, and it lost actually by a fairly slim count.
Okay.
There wasn't a lot of discussion as to why members voted no. It might have been that they didn't think the strategy was worth it, or they didn't want to pay the $10. It's hard to say. I mean, they were already not making very much money.
Yeah,
and
right.
$10 in 1970 was a fair chunk. So
it's a lot now.
Yeah,
to be honest, I mean,
that's fair. And they had already been employing Gray and Rogers to print a newspaper for the union. Okay. So it might have just been that they didn't think it was worth it to expand on that. Which is valid. So on the management side, the president of the school board was a fellow by the name of William Ross, who was not only a president in the ILGWU, the International Ladies Garment Workers Union.
Oh, okay.
He was also, I think, an executive vice president for the Philadelphia AFL-CIO, and was like time-tested labor leader. But so you would expect him to like kind of be negotiating and be willing to work with the workers. Instead,
your
he
tone
brought in
suggests otherwise.
Yeah, he brought in Frank Rizzo's labor negotiator.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
Frankie's back.
This was in the second year of Mr. Rizzo's reign.
Oh my God! I didn't
in
even
Philadelphia
connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing Rizzo back on the podcast. All right, friend of the show, Frank Rizzo.
Yep. So he brought in Jack Soloff, who was Rizzo's labor negotiator, to lead the negotiations.
Can I just say, Rizzo's labor negotiator is such a... that's like...
Yeah.
They have those kind of titles in hell.
Yeah.
Right out. Rizzo's labor negotiator.
Soloff was the guy who talked to you before your kneecaps were broken. So that they had something on the record.
Are broken.
Yeah. So over the course of the summer, the two sides barely ever met. There were only 4 meetings throughout the whole of July, which was like they needed a contract by September 1st. So
yeah,
they should have been meeting a lot more.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And the lead negotiator on Pift side, a guy named John Ryan, basically was saying like, I'm willing to meet day in and day out whenever management wants to.
Mm-hmm.
And then Soloff was responding to that, or William Ross was basically just like, yeah, we don't need to meet. It's fine. So
great.
Clearly, it's going great. In August, there was a lot of pressure building. Everyone was expecting the strike because there had been no movement. Then, in an attempt to, what I think was an attempt to turn the public against the teachers, William Ross announced that all Philly public schools would close if the strike went forward, which was a reversal of what they did in the 1970 strike, where they kept schools open with basically a skeleton crew just to keep the kids there.
Okay.
Which just freed up pressure on the parents. So the Citizens Council for Public Education implored the school board to reconsider and wanted them to open the schools 1 month late on October 1st, and that thinking that would give the school board time to negotiate with the teachers and then go to the city council and ask for money for a new budget.
Okay.
President Ross, or William Ross, responded to that, saying Philly is already taxed enough and they expect to have a full school year. So that taxed enough thing shows up a lot during, especially what Rizzo has to say about all of this. There were the public response was kind of mixed. There were some groups that were basically advocating for the city and state government to just find the money and fund schools.
Yeah.
Which that would be the sensible solution. So they sent the Philadelphia Home and School Council. There's like 6 different citizen councils that all weighed in on this. They represented 300,000 parents in the city. They met on August 24th and sent letters to Mayor Rizzo, Governor Shapp, and all of the city council members.
Oh, Shapp.
Yeah. And asked them to provide more school funding. Then a bunch of student groups basically all discussed how they were going to scab on the teachers.
Okay.
During the strike and set up their own schools.
What?
So they were reaching out to like churches and community centers to set up their own classrooms.
Damn. Okay.
And asked like retired teachers and volunteers to come in and lead classes while the strike was going on.
All right. Holy shit.
So on September 4th, there was a last-minute bargaining session, and management proposed the following. A $330 per year salary increase for the teachers, an increase in the workday for junior and high school teachers, and cutting 485 teaching positions across the district.
Okay. What?
So the union rejected that.
Yeah.
Because it's
shit.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
So that was like the last attempt. And on September 5th at 7 a.m., the strike began. So teachers were picketing around 400 schools, about half of because it wasn't just Philly school districts that were negotiating a contract at this point. It was basically like all of Pennsylvania.
Huh. Okay.
Was negotiating contracts. So half of the suburban districts, or at least all of southeastern PA, half of the suburban districts were expected to go on strike by the end of the week. The other half had already gotten a new contract. Almost all of those new contracts happened in like last minute sessions at the very beginning of September. Then on September 5th, teachers at Community College of Philadelphia voted to strike, and marched out in solidarity with their fellow teachers from the Philly School District. Parochial or lay teachers at parochial schools were threatening to strike, but they negotiated a contract last minute. And then Hebrew schools in the city remained open, which wasn't them scabbing. It was that they were negotiating with
Gabe. Sure, Gabe. Sure.
With the Board of Jewish Education in America, which is apparently a national organization that I didn't know existed. So they were negotiating a retroactive contract that they were expected to sign in like the next week or so. So they weren't going on strike because they figured they were getting a contract soon.
Sure. Okay, Gabe.
At least according to the Philadelphia Inquirer.
It sounds like a little bit of a bias here.
I mean, We are the chosen people, so it's fine. Okay, so then on September 6th, there was a mass meeting of teachers at the Bellevue Stratford Ballroom.
Oh dear.
And so there was a lot of cheering for the solidarity that they had for the first day of striking.
Okay.
Leadership provided an update on negotiations, which was basically they're not happening right now. And they made plans for how to continue the strike. Negotiations were supposed to restart on Thursday, but they expected the school board to basically continue stonewalling. And they were digging in for a long fight. It was also that Thursday that parochial teachers signed a new contract, avoiding a strike. So then on Thursday, September 7th, it was announced that schools would remain closed for the foreseeable future. It's also only 804 teachers out of the 13,000 that were on strike crossed the picket line.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty good. And some of basically any school programs that weren't funded by the city would remain. So there were federally funded daycare and extracurricular programs that continued.
Yeah.
Because that was a different budget. Then Rizzo also came out on the 7th and said that the teachers should get back to work under their previous contract until negotiations were completed. The teachers actually supported that.
Okay.
And said, yes, we would like to do that. Because the teachers, throughout all of this, no one actually wanted the kids to go without schooling.
Yeah.
They wanted to be able
about
to
being
teach.
the teacher. Exactly.
Yeah. But the school board rejected the idea because they were trying to roll back some of their initial statement. This gets a little more complicated down the road. Their initial statement was that they were trying to, or they didn't say they were trying to roll back some of the gains, but they were saying they were trying to renegotiate some of the items in the 1970 contract, and it would cause too much confusion to bring kids back under the 1970 contract and then switch them to the 1972 contract. So on September 8th, it was announced that the 10 largest banks in the city wouldn't bail out the school district because the school district had loans with all of them. So they had requested a reinstatement of all of those loans. And the banks said no. So that actually added some more credence to the district's claim that they literally did not have enough money to pay their teachers.
Why do we have banks again?
It's a really good question. It's a really good question.
I don't mean to sidetrack. Okay, never mind.
I
had a moment of clarity for a second, Gabe. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Also, I do want to point out at this point the continually excellent reporting from the Philadelphia Daily News, which throughout all of this strike was vehemently anti-teacher.
Oh.
They kept interviewing students that were very upset that they couldn't go to school.
What?
So they interviewed a fellow by the name of Freddie Strickler, who was a 6th grader in 1972.
Freddie Strickler likes going to school? Nobody named Freddie Strickler likes going to school. Let's talk about this for a second. Freddie Strickler does not like going to fucking school.
So he said that he cried when he couldn't go to school.
What a little bitch.
And he said he was mad at the teachers for wanting more money.
What? Yo, Freddie, we're done. Yeah. We're done, Freddie.
When I go to school, I'm going to punch my teacher for not coming to school.
What?
So, Freddie Strickler, if you're listening to this podcast, you're a scab. Okay, so first week of striking finished up. The school board, or the Board of Education, met publicly for the first time. And they stated that for the first time in recent memory, the entire board was in agreement on something. And what they were in agreement on was that they would not budge on the contract at all.
Okay.
And did not want to give in to any of the teachers' demands.
Oh, nice.
So at least they had unity.
Solidarity.
Yeah. So at this point, a third party came into the negotiations, which was the Union of Student Governments, which represented student governments from basically every single school in the city.
So good.
Yes. Usug. So Usug proposed the idea that the teachers should return under the old contract while negotiations continued.
Yeah, again.
And John Ryan from PUFT agreed with that and brought up that proposal at negotiations and was like, hey, we can do this.
Yeah.
And then again, William Ross rejected that, saying it would only cause confusion. So finally, the students demanded that they be included in all future negotiations, since they'd be the ones most affected by the contract.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
This
is not a bad point.
No.
And so Ryan actually supported that and was like, yes, we should have the students in here.
Okay.
Because he kind of figured that the students would be on their side, saying like, hey, you should just fund schools.
Oh, yeah.
So, but then William Ross from the school board said it was not possible. So there was also ongoing concern that too many students were missing out on too much of the school year. So the school district put out educational TV programs starting on September 18th. And those basically ran throughout the whole of the strike. And they weren't, you couldn't exchange them for credits, but it was basically like,
it
was so that you could.
It was Cocoa Melon.
Yeah, basically.
Cocoa Melon.
The idea was that you would be given assignments in these TV programs, and that was supposed to kind of keep you active while the strike was going on. So then John Ryan, the chief negotiator for PUFT, went to the Philadelphia AFL-CIO Council on Wednesday, September 13th, and proposed a resolution condemning the whole of the Philadelphia Board of Education. But that was obviously aimed specifically at William Ross, because he was the vice president of the Philadelphia Council AFL-CIO and was the manager of the joint dress board of the Philadelphia International Ladies Garment Workers Union. So the Philly AFL-CIO initially rejected the proposal. Then Ryan changed the wording from censor to criticize, and that passed.
Okay.
So there was starting to be some labor movement kind of pushback against William Ross, which will come up again. So then while Ryan was going to the AFL-CIO trying to get Ross censured, a whole bunch of community groups tried to sue PUFT over the strike, claiming that they were causing damages to the students. And then PUFT countered that by basically saying, like, you have no say in these negotiations whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And this strike is, like, if you want this strike to be over, tell the school board to pay us.
Yeah. Is there an organization who is not a part of this yet?
So far, no. I think
I'm good.
like if you got 3 people together, they all had a say in these negotiations, which also researching this was one of the most difficult episodes, or this was one of the most difficult episodes to research because both the Inquirer and the Philadelphia Daily News interviewed the entire population of the tri-state area to get their sense of this fucking strike. Like, they were literally getting editorial letters from people living in Trenton.
Why?
I don't
Jesus
know.
Christ.
And I don't know why they were publishing this. It's like, this person has no fucking connection to this city. Their opinion does not matter. You're just muddying the waters.
When Gabe says their opinion does not matter, that means he's very much into this right now. I love this Gabe right
I
now.
was so frustrated by this because doing like or searching for teacher strike would bring up 70 friggin' results, all from the same day of the newspaper. And you had to go through page by page to figure out which one was like, well, I've walked past a school and therefore I know everything there is to know about teaching.
Well, the Philly Daily News, they had to go find people who were against the teachers. So they had to go all the way to Trenton to find someone who was against the Philadelphia teachers.
Well, that's the other thing, that like every editorial was basically just like, the teachers are making my life difficult, so they should go back to work. I don't care that they can't afford to feed themselves. It was infuriating to read these, especially since like the comments that you see about teachers today just have not changed.
Yeah,
it was the same shit.
It's because there's a lot of it's parents who like want to get rid of their kids for a couple hours a day, which is perfectly fine. But I mean, don't you want your kids to be not fucking dipshits when they come back home at the end of the day? You know, it's like, don't you want someone competent looking after your kids?
Yeah.
Someone who's paid well, who's
don't you want someone who like isn't looking or having to watch out for 60 students at once?
Exactly.
Okay, so while all of this was going on, the CCP, or the Community College of Philadelphia, the CCP, strike was ongoing. State mediators were brought in to both strikes to do fact-finding and negotiate. The management was starting to actually negotiate with CCP, and I couldn't find the end of their strike when that happened, but it looked like they actually won a decent contract, because even after 2 weeks, management was starting to budge on benefits. So I think CCP won, but again, wading through the like 80 freaking different editorial letters about this strike on every page of the newspaper made it nigh impossible to find good information. The Philly school district strike negotiations basically broke down over the length of the workday for high school teachers. That both sides were willing to negotiate on most of the other points, but the district really just wanted to like force high school teachers to work an extra 40 hours every day. Which is super nice of them. So there was some concern that would cause division within the union, and that elementary and junior teachers or junior high teachers wouldn't stand with their senior high school colleagues. But it looks like within the union, it was really well understood that once they do this to senior high, they're going to do it to junior high, and then they're going to do it to elementary. So fight this now, and then we're all going to be better off.
Good.
So the other thing that made this all more complicated was that the school district had to make a $5.6 million loan payment on October 1st.
Okay.
So they had a fire under their ass to get something solved by then. They're not only legally required to provide the services that they do, but they were also legally required to pay this loan. And they were having trouble figuring out how to do both of those things. So there was finally some movement, actually on the state side. There was a resolution passed to provide a $16 million one-time grant to the school district. It still needed to pass the state house, though. It had only passed the state senate. And they didn't think it was going to be likely, but that at least started to get some negotiations going because they thought maybe there's going to be some money. So on September 26th, there was a late night meeting at City Hall between Soloff and Ryan. Soloff, again, is school district. Ryan is from the PUFT. At 9:20 p.m., they seemed like they had a resolution ready to go. They walked out of their negotiating chamber and went into Mayor Rizzo's office.
Okay.
Soloff walked right past the reporters, didn't say anything. Ryan accepted a slice of cold pizza.
What?
Ate it.
What?
Posed for a picture, and then got on an elevator and went to Rizzo's office, but didn't say anything.
Okay.
Like someone just handed him a slice of cold
Who the fuck
pizza.
gave him the pizza?
I think probably one of the union's aides or one of the other negotiators.
Who?
But they made a point in the paper of saying, like, he walked out of the office, someone handed him pizza.
Gabe.
I find it interesting that he took the time to pose for a photo shoot.
Yeah.
But didn't say anything to reporters.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
From what I've been able to tell just from the reporting around him, John Ryan seems like he was a very, like, close to the chest kind of guy. He did not talk a lot.
Yeah.
So at 9:35, so 15 minutes later, Soloff walked out of Rizzo's office, and reporters came up to him and asked if they should order flowers or champagne. Flowers meaning like memorial, champagne meaning celebration. Soloff just said the former and stormed off. So
with the chisel.
Yeah. At 9:52, Ryan and the rest of the PUFT negotiating team walked out of Rizzo's office. Ryan didn't really say much, but Lenny Saget
he ate another cold piece of pizza.
Had another slice of cold pizza. But Lenny Saget and Sonny Richmond, who were
Lenny Kravitz?
Yeah, Lenny Kravitz. Lenny Saget. Okay. Is the son of Lenny Kravitz and Bob Saget. Lenny Saget was the union's attorney. Sonny Richmond was the union's secretary. They came out fucking furious. God
damn.
It turns out that the reason that the school district can't return to the 1970 contract and reopen schools while negotiations continued is that the school board had cut $2 million from the budget in a cost-saving measure.
Jesus Christ.
They weren't legally allowed to do that because those $2 million were part of a budget that had been approved in a court of law because the previous contract was resolved in arbitration by a district judge.
Okay.
So they were really pissed off. And Saget said, the board is taking $2 million from a budget that's been approved by a court of law. It's stealing. And basically both him and Richmond just like ranted to the press for a while after this. When questioned about this, Soloff argued that the board had always maintained that they wouldn't increase the budget and that they would have to make do with the current school year budget. But he never acknowledged the fact that the district had cut $2 million from a budget they weren't supposed to cut from. So, negotiations again broke down. to the point where they probably would have to go to court, and no one wanted that to happen.
Jesus Christ.
Because that's how the last contract was negotiated, and it was apparently hellish because teachers were forced to return to work while negotiations were ongoing, and so no one knew what the rest of, like, every single day, your entire school year could just blow up the next day.
Sure.
Because no one knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So in a last-minute round of negotiations on Wednesday, September 27th, they finally reached an agreement. The teachers would return to work under the 1970 contract. Negotiations would continue until December 31st.
All right. Jeez.
So, and that's kind of how they worked around it, that they were only spending the budget, or they used the entire school year's budget to get them to December 31st.
Yeah. Jesus God.
Because they cut $2 million from it. So that was the end of the 1972 teacher strike.
But the
and
beginning.
It got students back into classrooms.
Oh, okay.
The school board was still planning a full 187-day school year, somehow. But at this point, everyone was just happy that the 3-week strike had ended. We're now getting into the 1973 Philadelphia School District strike, which there is debate as to whether or not it was a continuation of the 1972 strike, because that has legal implications.
Oh. Does it have legal implications as to we're going to be sued by somebody about this?
No, it has legal implications.
Oh, then fuck it.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, it was a continuation.
Okay, good. So welcome to part 2 of the 1972 Philadelphia teacher strike.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, before we begin, I do want to throw out, last episode, I had difficulty finding the name of a certain school that was for children who had been crippled in industrial accidents in Philly.
Yeah, we need to rectify this mistake that you made, Gabe.
Yes. The actual name of that school is the Widener Memorial Industrial Training School for Crippled Children.
Jesus Christ.
Which is a fantastic fucking name.
Jesus Christ.
It is now the campus of Girls High School on Broad Street.
Less catchy of a name.
Yeah. It was basically, like we said, when your children get murdered or injured in an industrial accident, they can go to this school and learn a different trade that is less likely to kill them.
Don't worry, those schools are coming back soon. We have kids in meat packing plants and everything now, and butchers. So
yeah,
good.
What was that meme that you did a long while ago about learning about labor history and then learning that all of that shit is still happening?
Where you're just like smoking cigarettes and just drinking straight whiskey and be like, fuck, nothing has changed. Yeah.
And speaking of nothing changing, let's talk about teachers being mistreated.
Oh my God. What a segue.
I think we should go through a brief little refresher just to give people a reminder of where everything stands.
Oh God.
The first schools really date back to ancient Greece.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I hate you, Gabe.
Okay, so January rolled around and there still wasn't a contract. Parents were worried that they were going to have to find something to do with their kids for their
God,
the remainder of the school year.
Good heavens.
Yeah. Well, it did. The fact that it was happening in January did actually make it more difficult because, like, in September, you can still have kids outside and you can have like outside activities with them. You can't really do that in January. School sports and all extracurriculars were probably going to get cut off. So by December 31st, there was no resolution. Winter break lasted until January 8th.
Mhm.
So they had another week to get this done.
All right, 1 week, guys. Come on, let's do it.
Yeah. The Inquirer went around and asked everyone what their plans were for the winter break. Half of city council, or about half of city council, went on vacation. But surprisingly, Rizzo actually stayed and worked. And then the negotiating teams from both the Federation of Teachers and the school board actually worked through the entire winter break. They weren't necessarily negotiating with each other, but I think there weren't really any negotiating meetings because the school board kept refusing to meet with anyone.
Nice.
But
that's how you negotiate.
So then, again, student government actually came in and started putting pressure on the district.
Okay.
To negotiate in good faith and find the money to keep the schools open. The student president from George Washington High School said that the city, or he said that it seemed to him that the city considered repainting police cars a higher priority than educating its youth. Because, nothing has changed. There was also one of the picket signs that they were carrying during the strike was fund schools, not cops.
Okay.
Which,
yeah,
it was just depressing to see that, like, we're having the same conversation today.
Exactly. But I mean, in all honesty, if you fund schools, there will be a need for less cops. So yes, you are correct.
Yeah. You'd think someone would have figured that out at some point, but
no. We're saving all of our personal opinions till the end of the episode.
Yeah. Okay, so the school board made an offer on January 3rd, or made an offer in early January, which went to vote by the teachers on January 3rd.
Yeah.
There was over 10,000 ballots cast, and it was rejected 8-1. Because it was basically their positions that I laid out earlier of, like, high school teachers working an extra 40 hours every day, getting rid of 200 jobs.
Yeah.
35 students in the classroom.
Yeah. Okay.
So not a great thing. Oh, pardon me. There had been some movement. Very minor.
Okay. I'm excited, Gabe.
The board was proposing normal experience raises every year, a 3% raise for all staff, cost of living increases, but no experience raises next year, and then a cost of living increase and experience raise in the third year of the contract.
Jesus Christ.
The union position was a 5.7% annual raise plus experience raises, and the first year's raise should be paid retroactively to the beginning of the 1972-73 school year.
Okay.
Which is fair enough. The board was standing firm on 35 students for the maximum class size for the next 3 years. The union wanted that reduced to 33. So the union actually moved on that from initially demanding
from 25.
Yeah. So an extra 8 students is a lot. For elementary teachers, the board was saying they'd get 30 minutes of prep time a day starting next year, 45 minutes of prep time in the third year of the contract, some of which would be covered by non-teaching personnel.
What does that even mean? What does that even mean?
I think
someone else is doing your prep for you. What does that even mean?
I think it was like administrative aides would be watching your students.
Yeah.
Well, you got prep time.
Imagine your job having like 30 minutes. You need 30 minutes of prep time for your job. At least that.
Yeah.
That's what they're giving you.
Yeah. So the union actually agreed with that because it was better than what they were getting before.
Yeah, it's better than nothing, but okay.
But they wanted to have it listed in the contract that recess did not count towards prep time.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it should also be noted teachers were out watching the kids during recess.
Yeah, and it's a recess for them too. It's lunch for them. Can they eat?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like, they are also human beings.
I would also
surprisingly.
like a sandwich.
Yeah.
Sloppy Joes for all the workers.
So then senior high school teachers, the board wanted no changes in the teaching day for this year, which was actually progress because prior to that, they wanted to increase the workday this year. But they wanted to increase it by 40 minutes longer the next year, which would, or for the next 2 years. And then in the third year of the contract, it would be reduced back down to what it was in 1972. Yeah, it was just really weird.
I got nothing to say about that.
The union was willing to accept that because by the third year of the contract, they would get it back down to like a reasonable amount.
Okay.
So the union was actually like playing ball and was willing to negotiate on a lot of stuff. Except they wanted teachers to either receive overtime or they wanted a new rostering plan, which would require the hiring of more teachers by the second year.
Oh, God, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So then they were also negotiating for the Get Set daycare teachers, which was a federally funded program, but I think there were matching funds from the city budget that were covering the teachers' salaries. So it was weird, convoluted school budgets. So the board wanted to give all of the daycare teachers just a flat 3% raise. The union wanted all of the daycare teachers to be brought onto the same pay scale as all other DFT teachers.
Okay.
Which is fair enough. Like, they're teachers. They should be on the same pay scale as the rest of the union. They were also all card-carrying union members. So there's no reason to separate them out and have a two-tier system. So January 8th rolls around. There's no movement, or there's no agreement. So the pickets showed back up. Vast majority of teachers obeyed the strike. And that day, Mayor Rizzo also held a press conference.
Oh, God.
At City Hall, which apparently he had requested a massive increase in security for City Hall during this press conference. So he told reporters that he doubled down on his positions from September. There would be no new taxes. And basically said that the teachers union should suck it up and get back to work. Or as he said it specifically, somewhere at some time in this city, someone has to stand up, and I've elected to be that guy.
Stand up to the teachers, Rizzo. You got it, bud.
Yeah.
You're our man.
And he stood up to the teachers.
Fucking teacher.
By going back into his office, which was surrounded by plainclothes detectives, along with uniformed cops. There were mounted and canine units positioned outside of the northeast corner of City Hall Plaza, which is where the mayor's office is. Uniformed police were walking all of the hallways in the building. The 30-man intelligence squad, led by Lieutenant George Fensel, and state highway patrol officers were blocking every single entrance to City Hall. and checking the IDs of anyone that wanted to get into the building. And also there were some like civic groups protesting Rizzo at this point, saying like, hey, you need to just find the fucking money to get schools back open. And Rizzo was like, no, I'm going to fortify myself in City Hall and implement martial law in this one block of downtown. So Rizzo and City Council refused to give in on the outrageous demands of the teachers' union,
Jesus Christ.
which, again, was meeting the school board on almost every point in negotiations.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was also at this point that the school board started to openly admit that they were $40 million in debt, even without a new teacher or without a new budget for teachers. So that was just their outstanding debt from loans.
Yay!
Yeah. So the city was going to have to find a way to pay that money somehow, or the district was going to go bankrupt.
Rizzo's going to have to go back to the poll.
Yeah.
Rizzo, you're going to have to do a bunch more splits, buddy, for us.
He could probably raise $40 million in a couple nights.
I think Frank fucking Rizzo at a strip club on a Friday night.
If nothing else, I think a lot of people in Philly would just pay to see that.
Yeah.
This time, the school board elected to actually keep schools open during the strike.
All right. Okay.
About half of the schools had sufficient teachers to remain open.
Okay.
But that means that they had like one actual teacher show up.
Oh.
And there were multiple schools that had no teachers show up, but had like some office staff there. So they had administrative aides basically like playing a movie or handing out books.
Oh, the best day is when the movie comes out.
Yep.
When the rolly cart with the TV comes out. That is the best day at school.
But it did actually lead to some problems because there were students who were set to graduate at the end of the school year.
Nope. Sorry.
Yeah. And so they were kind of concerned as to whether or not they were going to get to do that. But
here's a movie about graduating called The Graduate.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is not my job.
Yeah. It's school related.
It's school related.
So the response to the first day of striking was very quick. One senator or a state senator from South Philly, the Democratic Senator Thomas B. McCreish, proposed a bill which would repeal Act 195, which was the law that allowed public sector striking to happen.
Okay.
So that wouldn't have an impact. Buddy. Yeah. That wouldn't impact this strike, but basically it was like, giving teachers any amount of power is clearly just troublesome.
Oh, thank you.
So we should remove that. Yeah. And in his announcement, that it was one of the most frustrating things is what he said about it is basically like, municipal workers are essential to the functioning of a stable society, so therefore we shouldn't let them go on strike.
Okay. What?
So they're essential to a stable and functioning society, but they shouldn't get
unless
like,
they have a problem
wages.
with something, then they should shut the fuck up.
Yeah. This is also like I was talking about in the last episode, both the Inquirer and the Philadelphia Daily News had editorials written in from fucking everyone.
Oh, the Inquirer too? I thought it was just the Daily News.
Oh no, it was both of them.
Come on.
This was one written into the Inquirer from a fellow by the name of Hamilton A. Long, who claimed that the teacher strike was illegal because Act 195 contradicted statements from FDR in 1937 and Calvin Coolidge in
What?
1919,
What?
before Calvin Coolidge was actually president, but while he was the governor of Massachusetts.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah. Both of which stated that public sector workers should not strike against the public. So he was using that as evidence that Act 195 was illegal. He also cited the Declaration of Independence, claiming
What?
that... Yep.
What the
He
fuck?
claimed that the separation of powers from the
Maybe-
Declaration of Independence showed
What?
that public sector striking or public sector unions are unconstitutional, despite the fact that the Declaration of Independence is not a legal document.
What is happening? What is happening? Why did they interview this person? Charles Manson also said blah, 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 one time. Are you going to quote him?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. It was very frustrating. So I think this strike just broke a lot of people's brains.
Okay. So we're just interviewing everybody about it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for the astute journalism there, Philadelphia Inquirer. Thanks, buds.
I will say, like, this is perhaps the only societal benefit of Facebook is that people are now posting all of this nonsense there.
Yeah.
Rather than writing into the Inquirer.
I mean, that's pretty much what this was. It was a Twitter post. Yeah. You know, this was literally tweets.
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of journalism is today. It's just like, oh,
yeah,
Jack 69 XXX 69 75 said the Declaration of Independence has a lot to do with the 1972 teacher strike.
I would not be surprised if Hamilton A. Long took his typewriter into the bathroom with him and typed this all out on the shitter and then mailed that into the Inquirer.
Oh, the old days when you had nothing to read but the shampoo bottle.
Yep.
I miss those days, Gabe.
So, another proposal from the school board reached the union on Wednesday the 10th. Yeah, 8th, 9th, 10th. That's how dates work. And the PFT's lead negotiator, or PIFT's lead negotiator, John Ryan, said that it was basically just a rehashing of the same proposal they had already rejected back on the 5th. At this point, of the 13,000-ish members in PIFT, 2,190 had crossed the picket line, which allowed 180 schools of the approximately 400 in Philadelphia to reopen. Like I said, though, some of these schools were only open with one teacher, and others without any. So there wasn't a lot of actual education happening, but they did get kids like off of the street and into these schools. And the school board brought back their television educational programs.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So while all of this was going on, there were also threats of an injunction against picketing.
Oh, God.
In 1970, PUFT faced a $75,000 per day fine for picketing.
Damn.
Which lasted for 3 days before the contract was settled. And so they basically just sucked it up and paid those fines because they needed to keep the picket lines going. This time, though, they said that they would again ignore the injunction and continue to picket, but the locals' funds were basically dry at this point. They finished 1972 $112 in debt after the fall strike. And they were going. Sorry?
Could be a lot worse.
Oh, yeah. They could be $40 million in debt, like the school district. So they were going to, or they said they were potentially going to seek support from the International, but the American Federation of Teachers had just finished up a long strike in Newark, New Jersey, and so their money was running low too. So there was a lot of pressure on the Philly teachers to get this strike finished up because they did not have a lot of runway to play with.
Damn, they wasted it on Newark. God damn.
Yeah, I know. So on January 10th, the union proposed a resolution to the Philadelphia AFL-CIO to censure William Ross. This time they weren't mincing their words. They're like, no, we need to censure him specifically. That was a Wednesday. That Thursday afterwards, Ross solved the problem and resigned from the Philly AFL-CIO.
Okay.
As he explained, he didn't want to be questioned on his conduct.
Okay.
And then he called John Ryan a fanatic who wasn't worth his time. It should also be noted that AFSCME District Council 33 and the Machinists Union joined in Puft's call for Ross's resignation. And John Ryan, the lead negotiator for Puft, told reporters that, or he said of Ross, talking about Ross, he said, "This shows what side he's on. He's a boss. He's acted like a boss." Which, yeah, that's fair. If you're negotiating for management, you're kind of a boss.
Yeah.
So citizens groups started to ramp up their pressure on city council, the union, and the school board. And they were just angry with everyone. So on January 12th, the Citizen Committee on Public Education submitted a demand that the strike should be resolved by binding arbitration from city council. They said that the city budget for schooling should be increased and the schools should finally be reopened because it's doing ongoing harm to the community, which it was.
Yeah.
So they laid out the following demands: that the salary issue should be resolved by binding arbitration. City council should, before arbitration begins, pass a binding resolution that guaranteed the funds to match the contract. So basically they were saying whatever the contract is, you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
After that, all parties would be bound by the resolution. Mayor Rizzo would have to make a public pledge to not veto that resolution. And then city council would then have to pass measures to ensure funding for the remainder of the school year. To do that, they proposed an $8 million increase in real estate taxes, a $6 million increase in business tax, or by redefining business taxes, a $12 million increase in business taxes, a new liquor tax, which would bring in $14 million.
Okay.
And that all adds up to around $40 million. So,
all right.
Like, they could balance the school district's budget.
Yeah.
And Rizzo responded to that with no new taxes. Yeah. One of the interesting things that I keep running into is a lot of the Reagan neoliberalism started locally in a lot of cities in the 70s.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how all of these cities were used as test beds, including like breaking public sector unions.
Yeah.
So
thanks, Rizzo.
Yeah, it's great. Gotta love them.
50 years later. Thanks a lot, buddy. It's worked out great.
Yeah.
Rizzo's Test Kitchen.
By the 15th, strike went into its second week. The school district then established 8, air quotes, learning centers for high school seniors. Basically, they recognized that they didn't have enough teachers to keep all of the high schools open.
Okay.
They also didn't have enough high school students showing up to justify keeping all of the high schools open.
All right.
So they started consolidating the seniors into these 8 learning centers that were basically like graduation prep. They just did graduation prep. So Frank Sullivan, who is the president of PUFT, went out and said, like, there's no actual education that's going to go on here. They're going to be handed a test booklet or shown a video.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, and
it's kind of what happened.
And get fitted for their suit for prom. Yeah, that's about it.
Interestingly, a lot of the student groups were really concerned by this because you were mixing kids from different neighborhoods, and they were worried.
Shit.
They thought there was going to be a lot of gang violence.
Yeah,
especially in the South Philly schools.
Yeah, that's the thing. Philly is a city of neighborhoods, and none of them like each other.
Yeah,
so I mean, seriously.
Yeah,
there
actually
will be some fights.
There weren't a lot of reports of major fights, but like, it's a Philly high school, so there's a fight every day.
Yeah,
because children are awful. Despite being our future.
That's gonna be our tagline.
So the Ross then William Ross, the recently censured former president of the AFL-CIO,
okay, he's back in the story. All right,
and president of the school board, saying that I respond to that by saying that the teachers they're hiring for these centers are probably better educators than the ones out on the picket line.
All right.
There was one major problem, or one potential problem for the strike, though. Under the September agreement, teachers would get double pay for working on holidays. The January 15th was Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, which was considered a holiday in the Philadelphia school district. It wasn't a federal holiday yet, but it was in Philly. So I think the school board had timed the opening of these centers specifically to get teachers to come in and work for double pay on MLK Day. Because they also suspended negotiations on the 15th and basically were like, you should just come and work for us and stop negotiating. So it was a very like kind of dirty and calculated measure. Or at least that's how I read it. It could all be coincidence.
Gabe, you're very conspiracy minded.
Yeah.
I'm worried about you.
It's true. Rizzo never died.
9/11 was an outside job.
Yep.
I'm technically not wrong.
You're not. It was done by Frank Rizzo from the basement of Philadelphia City Hall.
Damn. Figured it out.
Yep. I'm going to call Alex Jones and let him know.
Good. I'm glad you have his number.
Yep. They had 400 teachers at the education centers for the seniors. However, the district was calling them teachers. Not all of them were trained educators.
Okay. What does that mean?
It looks like there were about 200 actual like trained educators. The rest were all administrative aides.
All right.
Or just like people working for the school board. So the teaching was done by handing out like test books, booklets, AV programs, which were tape decks or movies. So it basically the rest of the school year was subs is the best way to explain it.
Nice.
Yeah. In addition to the school center, the school board took legal action. They had won an injunction on Thursday the 12th. So then on Thursday the 11th, pardon me. So in the evening on Monday the 15th, Sheriff Charles E. Murray issued a show cause writ to 28 members of the executive board of the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers, who had all engaged in mass picketing, which had a quote-unquote an intimidating effect on teachers that wanted to work. So it did what a picket line is supposed to do.
Yeah.
So the school board had suggested that they just be fined rather than face prison sentences.
Jesus Christ.
Ross specifically said he didn't want them to be imprisoned because he was worried that they would become martyrs. So it wasn't necessarily benevolent of them. So they had hearings scheduled for 10 a.m. on Tuesday the 16th, and those who weren't held by the court were expected to show up to negotiations at 1:30 that afternoon on the 16th. Judge Jameson, who was not only enforcing the injunction but also overseeing arbitration for the strike, basically told PFT leadership or PUFT leadership to end the strike and obey the injunction. And this was interesting because PUFT members were careful to not say this in court because it would hold them or would lead to them being held in contempt of court. But they told the press that they were just not going to obey the injunction at all and would continue picketing. But the injunction did have an intimidation effect on the teachers. And there were a lot that went back to work after this because they were worried about getting arrested.
Yeah.
Which that's fair. That can definitely screw up your
life.
And also, I don't know what teaching certificates were like in the 70s, but
having a criminal record probably is not the best.
Yeah, it probably doesn't help.
Yeah.
So by January 19th, the school board went back to city council asking for an increase in school taxes so that they could balance their budget. This was actually unrelated to the strike, but it showed that the school board was starting to actually get desperate. And basically Rizzo's stance of suck it up, find the money somewhere wasn't helping anyone.
Nah, it doesn't always work like that, does it?
Yeah. So the court trials for the PIFT executive board were set to begin on Monday the 22nd. This was after the initial hearings. And basically everyone expected negotiations to drag out until the court proceedings had finished. And that's effectively what happened. Court proceedings and negotiations lasted well into February 1973. And actually, bail proceedings for Frank Sullivan and John Ryan, the president and lead negotiator, respectively, for PIFT, ended up going all the way to the Supreme Court.
Jesus.
Which denied them bail.
Oh my God.
So the two leaders of the strike ended up being arrested and held in jail.
Oh, okay.
For basically all of the winter of 73. Which it doesn't seem like they were being held up as martyrs. It seems more like they just were, or the negotiating team was severely weakened after that.
Yeah.
So but by the end of February 1973, negotiations finally resumed, because the other thing is that the board kept just not showing up to negotiations.
Okay.
Or just not scheduling anything. So they could apparently agree on broad issues, but every time they got into specifics, there was one little thing where they couldn't agree, and it seemed to change every time. But that would just shut down negotiations for the rest of the day. Now, while Sullivan and Ryan had been taken out of the negotiations because they were in jail. The rest of the PUFT negotiating team went to the Philadelphia AFL-CIO and started to figure out ways that they could increase pressure on the board and get something done. And while they couldn't officially have a general strike out or a sympathy strike from anyone else, they were going to try out a new tactic, which they were calling a day of conscience.
What?
It was basically a general strike for a day. So the whole Philly AFL-CIO would just have a work stoppage for one day.
Okay.
Do you remember? I think it was one of the textile strike up in, I think it was like Bethlehem or something, where they had the labor holiday.
All right.
Rather than a general strike.
Yeah.
It's basically the same idea.
Okay.
That we're not going on strike. We're just having a parade.
We're just having a holiday. It's a holiday. A spontaneous holiday.
Yeah. So effectively, they were threatening a work stoppage of 70 unions representing 400,000 workers.
God damn it.
Across the city. Yeah. So they were ready to make some waves here. So they threatened that for Wednesday, February 28th. But they never actually had to go through with it because the threat worked. And the board sent out a new contract to be reviewed by the union.
Okay.
It initially got rejected, citing a disagreement over retirement age. But the board relented, and the vote was scheduled for Thursday, March 1st at 8 a.m. In a vote of 4,171 to 696, the new contract passed.
Hey!
We should also note here how many teachers had gone back to work at this point. That we started with 13,000, and we're at 4,800.
Ooh.
Yeah. So at this point, the strike was breaking down because the union had no money.
Yeah.
It was middle of winter. Everyone was broken.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, it was bad. But they ended up making some progress. So they got a new 4-year contract with 4 to 7% increase in wages, an increase in benefits. They actually pushed the board down to 33 students maximum per class, which is up from their initial position, the union's initial position of 25.
Yeah.
But it's still 2 less than what the board was giving.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it's not horrible.
Yeah. Most importantly, they got 45 minutes of prep time for elementary school teachers, and only a 5-minute longer workday for high school. As opposed to 40 minutes. So all in all, it wasn't what they were looking for when they started, but it's better than
nothing. Shit.
Yeah.
I mean, they went through a lot for this, but I mean,
yeah,
the prep time, we can call it a breather. It's a really just a breather. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You need that.
And it's time to get the work done that's necessary for you to get your work done.
Yeah.
They were also up against a lot because it wasn't just the school board being stubborn.
Yeah. Holy
shit. It was the entirety of city government.
All the way up to the mayor.
And even the governor was saying, we're not giving you any more money.
Yeah.
So everyone was trying to break the union. And they held out fairly strongly, and ended up winning. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, they won in their own way, sure. Not too bad.
Yeah, PFT is still out there, still fighting,
still poofting.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, better wages, better hours, better conditions. Papa John's.